the next Chief Justice. And I heard already that there are people who are saying, why now? Many of those people are those people who nominated her and punted her as the next Chief Justice, while there were other two people that the president can choose from. And now they are saying, why now? The simple answer is that the president has got the prerogative to choose any one person from the three names that is recommended by the JSE. That is why. And I do think that she is going to do a good job because she's a credible judge, not because she's a woman. She just happened to be a woman, but she is chosen because she's good.
Good morning, Cathy, and welcome back. The word logic is a very powerful word because a lot of people don't seem to use it in South Africa. Your one caller, Letsiba or something like that, said, why blame the ANC for everything? There's a whole cabinet, there's parliamentarians, there's members of parliament. The ANC, DA, EFF and all the other parties should also be held to account. But what he fails to actually understand as a card-carrying member is that the ANC members of parliament outvote everyone else on everything. So the state of this country at the moment is the responsibility of the ANC.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
All right, we continue the conversation on the talking point. Let's take you now to the Northern Cape, where the state of the province in the legislature is going to be taking place. Premier Dr. Zomani Soul is expected, of course, to highlight what some of his administration successes have been, at least over the last term. But then also, what can residents of the Northern Cape expect in the upcoming financial year? Well, to kick us off for this conversation, let me welcome onto the show the MEC for Cocta, that's Bentley Vass, who is joining us this morning. Mr. Vass, good morning. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers.
Of course,
to the listeners.
Today is a big day for your province as the MEC, or as the Premier rather, officially tables his State of the Province address. Just broadly, how would you describe the work that this administration has been able to do, has been able to deliver in the Northern Cape?
Thank you very much. I think from my side, in my view, is that as a province we achieve a number of things raised by our communities in the past 5 years, although there's still a number of challenges, and we are working around the clock with our municipalities, district municipalities, the provincial government and national government. Currently, as we speak, we can confidently say that we managed to change the lives of our people. Things are better than it was some years ago. If you look in terms of a number of issues, if you take infrastructural development, if I can speak from the side of the department that I'm leading, we are looking at the issue of housing development, which is a critical area for us because we know that a number of our people are sitting without houses. Although as a province we have the challenge of the budget constraints, and we know that we are sitting with challenges in terms of the economy. Our economy is not doing good for now, but we are still pushing very hard with the limited resources to change the lives of our people.
Are there particular challenges that you believe you face that are perhaps unique to your province?
Yeah, look, if you see the Northern Cape, if you take Northern Cape in terms of the landscape, we are the biggest province in terms of landscape, although we don't have the numbers, which obviously impact on the budget, the allocation of the budget. This province is prone for disasters, like your field fires and a number of other disasters that are striking the province. But we're also sitting with challenges of water in our province, as a number of other parts of South Africa. But we are working around the clock to address some of these challenges. What I can also say is currently in our province, if you look at the housing backlog that we are sitting, we are having a backlog of more than 85,000 units. But we managed to get a 1 billion rand that we are going to build top structures in the province. We have more than 18,000 service sites, which means sites that there's access to water, there's access to sanitation. So if we are going to start with the actual construction by the 1st of April to build over 4,000 houses in the province. For now, it's a drop in the ocean, but we are still confident that going forward we will get more money to address the backlog of our communities. But we really want to plead to our communities to be patient and work with us. I think we are carrying government. We are listening to the issues that people are raising to us, and we are trying to respond to some of the issues that they are raising.
We, of course, have serious challenges, as you've touched on, when it comes to water, and in particular, the ability of the province to meet water demands at certain instances. And this mostly, of course, affects what is happening at a local government level. What are you doing to respond to that problem, particularly when it comes to the bulk water scheme projects you've been involved with?
Look, the municipality of Solplaiki are currently busy to address the water challenge. That's why they are having a project of more than 1.9 billion to address the water challenge in Solplaiki. You must remember that we are sitting with aging infrastructure, and the municipality is currently busy to look into the matter. It will take some time. It's not a project that will be finished within few months. It can take 2 to 3 4 years. But then people will have access to clean water, and I think things will be addressed by then. But it is a problem even in other areas where we sit with challenges of ESCOM with load shedding, which means that it's difficult for the pumps. You have to switch on off the pumps from time to time, so that at least you have water intervals and give water to our communities. But municipalities communicate to the communities, making sure that at least they know at what time they are going to switch off the pump, so that there's water supply maybe later or for the rest of the day. But the issue of water, I agree with you, it is a challenge, and we are working with the Department of Water and Sanitation and also the district municipalities and private sector to assist, because government can't do it on our own. We need partners to address some of these challenges. And maybe coupled with that, and we must remember that currently we are providing paper of water to a number of thousands and millions of people in South Africa. Now people at least have access to water. In the past, and all of us know the history of our country, and I think we should not shy away from that to say, but currently at least people have access to water. If you take in terms of the latest report of census, it shows you that we are really trying as a province and as a country to address the issue of the water challenge.
When it comes to the infrastructure spend, because it's another area that has been highlighted, where we need to effectively see a lot more investment going into infrastructure development in the province, and also the maintenance of infrastructure.
Yes. You see, that's why we encourage our municipalities to spend on the municipal infrastructure grant. One of the other critical areas is the filling of vacant positions in our municipalities, like your technical services positions, and also to stabilize the administration of municipalities, so that we can be in a better position to respond to the issues that people are raising in terms of service delivery. So for us, it's important making sure that there's stability, and we are focused on the issues that communities are raising. And we are sensitive on the issues that our communities are raising in terms of some areas where people are not getting proper services. Ours is to make sure that we give the best and quality services to our communities.
One of the challenges that we've had in your province has also been around how municipalities are spending their money, and it's a previous commitment that the Premier has made that there will be greater efforts for municipalities to receive clean audits, particularly in this financial year. Do you think that the administration has done enough to be voted back into governance come the 29th of May?
Absolutely. There's tangible things that people can see that we've done as this administration to change the lives of our people. I agree with you that in some of our areas on the issue of clean audits, I think there's improvement based on the latest outcome. Although we are saying that we need to make sure that we change the situation in our municipalities in terms of clean audits, making sure that we work around the clock with the administration, but also in terms of our political oversight in municipalities. You see, the issue of the budget and the audit, it's not only the responsibility of the CFO and the mayor of a municipality. It's a collective responsibility. All of us have to make sure that we implement the recommendations from the Auditor General and the team, making sure that things change in the municipality. But for now, I'm confident that more municipalities will receive clean audits going forward. We are working with the municipalities closely as Provincial Treasury, the Office of the Premier, Salga and Coxstar to change the situation in our municipalities.
All right, that there is Bentley Vass. He is the MEC for Cooperation, Governance, Human Settlements and Traditional Affairs in the Northern Cape. So, of course, what we are focusing on for this hour is the State of the Province address, and it really is the final term for the current administration. And as you heard, he's confident that what they've been able to deliver to residents in the last term of office could well be enough to bring them back so that they're given an opportunity to continue with the work that they had already started. Well, we're edging towards a break. When we come back, we'll be in conversation with the acting head of Department of Basic Education in the Northern Cape, Dr. Michelle Ishmael, and of course we'll continue to speak about what is happening in the province as we focus on the State of the Province address in that province.
Real savings, real benefits. Here's what real clients say about OUTsurance.
My name is Alan. I'm 71 years of age and I live in Douglasdale. I'm paying 554 Rand a month for my 2022 Nissan Magnite.
Want a car insurance premium that'll blow your mind? SMS out to 30754 now for a quote. It's quick, it's easy, and it could save you hundreds of rands every month. Here's Amy.
To anyone who has not reached out to OUTsurance, what are you doing? Reach out today.
Blow your mind, not your paycheck. SMS out to 30754 and see for yourself why OUTsurance was voted Best Car Insurer 2023 by the Star and Pretoria newsreaders. Here's Yusuf.
It just shows that OUTsurance is top of the tops when it comes to insurers.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Bafana Bastard remember what transpired in Lubumbashi when they went down by a goal to 0 against the Ravens. They want to ensure their visitors walk away with sad faces when they meet in the final group stage contest. However, the DRC outfit are confident of another upset. This is the CAF Champions League. Catch Mamelodi Sundowns versus TP Mazembe on Saturday 2 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point special coverage of the Northern Cape State of the Province address. Dr. Michelle Ishmael is the acting head of Department of Basic Education. Dr. Ishmael, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, Dr. Michelle, let's talk about the Northern Cape, especially when it comes to the basic education department. When you look at what has unfolded in the province over the last 5 years, are you satisfied with some of the results that you have been seeing, particularly in your department, and what it says about the state of education in the province?
Cathy, in terms of learner outcomes, you know that our National Senior Certificate is a key indicator. And although there has been a positive move upwards, we do feel that the province is able to do much better, and therefore we have started with our turnaround strategy. And this strategy consists of 5 pillars. It looks at leadership and management in schools. It looks at district development in particular. And then it also looks at leadership and management overall, and it ensures that all of the enabling factors, including infrastructure and all learner support programs, are in place. So this pillar, we hope, is going to catapult us onto another trajectory, so that we are able to ensure that our learner outcomes improves much further.
You're sitting with a situation, Dr. Ishmael, where the Northern Cape, even though you received a 75.8% matric pass rate in the country, it still puts you at the very bottom of the chain. And it's a trend that we have seen with your province, that on an ongoing basis, when measured against the rest of the country, the Northern Cape is always ranking in the lower parts on performance. When you sit and you run diagnostics of what it is that you're not doing right, perhaps what are the 2 or 3 key challenges that you would say you've identified?
We've identified our older learners, our 19 to plus minus 20, 24 aged learners, who are problematic learners, and they are our learners who fall into the category of progress learners and borderline cases. So this is the category that we're really going to concentrate on, to see how we can turn them around and to provide them with the kind of support that they need to excel in the classroom. Teacher development is a key area which is going to find, in our turnaround strategy, is going to find a special preference, and we're going to ensure that we channel funding to ensure that our teachers are capacitated. And then in particularly also, we have 25 chronic underperforming schools, high enrollment underperforming schools. So those 25 high enrollment underperforming schools are schools that are going to be intensely monitored and capacitated to bring them up to scratch.
You also are sitting with a situation where some areas of the Northern Cape, in certain districts, parents have been complaining about not having a school, an English medium of instruction school, where they can send their children to. And they believe that this is also hampering the ability of their children to learn. Where is the department with this conversation, and why does it seem that the parents are not winning despite the petitions, despite the calls they've made?
Cathy, this is in the Springbok area. We've done a number of feasibility studies, and if you look at the numbers, these children are scattered around the district, and the numbers are of such that we are not able to constitute a full school. It'll be foolhardy for us to do that, given the fact that we have to work and ensure that the little budget that we do have is used efficiently.
Do you think it's right?
Cathy, what we do is there is some form of assistance being provided to these learners. It is not that they are not getting schooling in English, although the schools in Springbok is Afrikaans home language schools. They are getting some form of English tuition so that they are able to excel.
All right, that is Dr. Michelle Ishmael, Acting Head of Department of Basic Education in the Northern Cape. And you heard what she had to say about the education in the language matter. And of course, many parents who we engaged at the beginning of the year would disagree with the fact that there is sufficient support for learners which allows them to excel. In fact, they say the opposite. It's just after 10:30. Let's take you to the latest news headlines. When we come back, we'll continue our focus on the Northern Cape.
Thanks, Cathy. A very good morning. With the news headlines, 5 of the suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tirello Tibbs Motwane have covered their faces with face masks or hoodies as they were led into a packed courtroom in the Durban Magistrates Court for their first appearance. Former ANC City of Tshwane chairperson Kgosi Mayepa is taking legal action against the DA, demanding the party's cadre deployment records, the FedEx minutes, from the 30th of September 2016 till January this year. And firefighters with the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro continue to battle a veld fire in the Sardinia Bay area on the outskirts of Gqeberha. A full news update coming up at 11.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, taking a look at your markets this morning. The rand currently trading at 19 rand 18 to the dollar, 24 rand 31 to the pound, and 20 rand 80 to the euro. Markets in Asia close firmer. The JSE higher in mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are slightly up this hour. Gold is trading at $2,036. Platinum $882 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $83.20 a barrel.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
All right, we continue the conversation on the Talking Point. We're focusing on the State of the Province address in the Northern Cape this morning. So we continue our coverage then from the Northern Cape. We're joined by the MEC for Economic Development and Tourism, Abraham Vosloo. Abraham, good morning. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Mr. Vosloo?
If you're active on social media and love SAFM, we hope you'll take a moment to like or follow our SAFM page on Facebook and Twitter. These are the best places to find all the guest information, conversations, and stories you love from your favorite presenters, along with regular updates from SABC News. And don't forget, you can send your questions to feedback@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The SABC TV Licenses Winner Holiday Experience competition has finally come to an end. And we are pleased to announce that Thabo Batye is the overall winner, who will be jetting off to Coachella in April with his girlfriend.
I don't even know what to say.
Thabo entered the Winner Holiday Experience with SABC TV Licenses competition last year, when it was running between 1 September and the 15th of December. He simply paid his TV license while he was at his grandmother's house in Kimberley, and he was hoping to win a PlayStation at the time. Little did he know that he would win the grand prize to either Coachella or the Bundesliga in Germany. Thabo obviously chose Coachella. Congratulations, Thabo. You are proof that paying your TV license really is the right thing to do. SABC TV Licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
The FNB Stadium will be painted in black and white as well as gold and black on Saturday, 9 March. you can also be there. 2 lucky fans stand a chance to win a VIP experience at the Soweto Derby, including transport and a supporter's jersey of your choice, courtesy of SABC Sport. To enter this thrilling giveaway, rush to sabcsport.com and visit the competition page. Entries close on Tuesday, 5 March 2024. T's and C's apply. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Coming up on the book reading, Why Men Had Women.
Men in our society suffer from lovelessness. Under this are interred various experiences and affects, feelings of being unlovable, of being unworthy of love, of being unloved, of poorly gratified hunger for love, and of an inconsistently gratified need for love.
Catch the book reading on SFM Monday to Thursday at 11:45 on The Talking Point.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
All right, we continue the conversation on the Talking Point. Apologies for that slight issue with transmission, but we're still live to the Northern Cape, where the state of the province is taking place today. And of course, we're reflecting on the term of office of the current administration. Dr. Zamani Soul expected to table his state of the province this morning. Let me invite onto the show Harold McGlure, who is the leader of the DA in the provincial legislature. Harold, good morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners as well, and thank you for having me on your radio station.
We've heard from the MEC for Cooperative Governance and the head of department for the Basic Education department. Both of them sound pretty optimistic about the term of office. They believe that there has been consistent progress on key issues, including infrastructure development, maintenance, the functioning of municipalities. In fact, they believe they've done enough to come back to serve yet another term. As a member of the opposition in the Northern Cape, your view?
Well, Cathy, one needs to understand that we have to speak about the real state of the province. And it's very surprising that the MEC is referring to the well and the work that they have done. You know, when we go currently, if you're looking at some of our municipalities, they are totally in disarray. They don't function. There's no service delivery at all. Not close to us. Last night, the TV also viewed the members of communities that are out of water for almost 3 months in Magareng municipality. We've seen also what happened in Uppington and Kakamas and Griquastad. People are without water. If we look at the money that has been pumped in by the Premier, 500 million rand to assist with the infrastructure in the capital city of Kimberley, nothing has been done. We also see that there's 2.5 billion rand. People are protesting against the poor services. The MECs, our work as the official opposition in the legislature, we have actually did our oversight roles and responsibility. We have ensured that we keep them accountable. I have numerous meetings with the MEC of Kokta. I also had a meeting with the MEC of Education. Our buildings are dilapidating. Our infrastructure is gone. With the last SOPA address of the Premier, Dr. Zamani Soul, with our debate, I asked him, I said, where is the infrastructure of our boarding schools? Those boarding schools has never been fixed. Now, one has to understand the promises that the Premier has made in 2019 to get away or with the blue lights, nothing happened, he's still using that. He promised the state construction company. That company was established and it is actually a company that doesn't function. We see our health department is in disarray. There's no medication in our health department. There's no doctors and nurses in our different community health services. This is things that the Premier must refer to. Some things that they have done is within the sports, arts and culture, and now we have went abroad to go and borrow 1 billion rand to build 4 million houses, whilst the Northern Cape is in a backlog of 19 million houses. There is a disarray in the Northern Cape. So we need to fix the Northern Cape. We know it's the same old story, rhetoric that will take place today. What has been done? We cannot carry on like this whilst the true state of the province is in disarray and falling apart.
Harold, how does the Northern Cape have a housing backlog of 19 million when they don't even have that many residents? Explain that to me.
Well, look, we are just over 1.2 billion people. And what happens here is there's a cry out. We see a number of the informal settlements come up. There's residents that's waiting for houses for almost 30 years now. They haven't received those houses. There's promises made time and again. In Rurepan, they would like to scrap the whole flat system, which they are going to do, but only 4,000 houses will be built. Now, there's so many people that are in a queue for houses and they haven't received their houses throughout the entire provinces. If you look into Kuruman, if you look into Katu, those areas, they are battling to get houses for almost 15 years. Nothing has been done. Only promises from the MECs and only promises from the MECs to fix the water system and the backlog of our water system here. I have, as I said, I had a discussion.
So Harold, just so that I understand you clearly, so when you reference a backlog of 19 million houses, are you saying that that is the
19,000.
Oh, you meant to say 19,000.
19,000.
Oh, okay, yes. All right. That makes sense. You said 19 million, which is why it stood out for me. Well, if it was a slip of the tongue.
I beg your
oh, okay. No,
yeah.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, so they are only going to build 4,000 houses now, whilst there's outstanding of 19,000.
I hear you loud and clear, Harold.
Right.
When it comes to infrastructure development, the layout of the Northern Cape presents a challenge sometimes, and I think it's a challenge similar to what you have in parts of the Eastern Cape, but probably more so because of just how sparse the province is. Have there been solutions to this problem? If we think about what I was asking Dr. Michelle Ishmael about the need for just one public medium of instruction school in the Springbok area that parents are crying out for. And she says, well, we can't build a school because all of the learners live too far apart from each other. Surely there must be other kinds of solutions given the landscape and the infrastructure.
Well, Cathy, the only problem for that specific school is in Springbok. And if you look at the radius within Springbok, it's close to 10 kilometers to 15 kilometers for the need of the school. And it is important for us also to accommodate some of these learners and the parents to have their children in a school where they would like to see them get education. But there is no willpower to build that school. I mean, we're sitting here with projects that hasn't been completed as yet. Within the 5 years, the school, there's some halt on the schools to complete the completion of the schools. But indeed, we had addressed this in the provincial legislature to accommodate those people and the learners within the Springbok area. And nothing has been done. There must be an allocation, a budget, and appropriation on it, and they can do that within 97 days to assist those community or find an alternative. There's so many buildings that is now dilapidating in the Northern Cape, even in Springbok, and we can actually restore those buildings and assist those communities from the Department of Education.
When we look at the issue of competitiveness, Harold, do you believe that the Northern Cape is positioning itself to compete with some of the provinces that are economic hubs in the country? What is the competitive edge that a province like the Northern Cape can be taking advantage of?
Yeah, we must understand the vastness of the province, and I think also it's sometimes impossible to do certain things in certain areas. But when there's a budgeting that we get as a province, we need to utilize that and ensure that those things gets done. And in essence is that if we project our budgeting to a specific area, we have seen now 3 schools in the region of John Tauli Gatsewe, is that those schools came to a total halt in terms of the contractors, the failing of the contractors doesn't complete it. And then what we do is we just send that money back to the treasury. We have seen that happen even with the mental hospital in 2004, where the mental hospital cost 235 million. In completion in 2019, it was close to 2.1 billion rand. We could have built a few hospitals with that. The same that happens in the education sector, that if we spend the money in the right direction and ensure that these completions of our constructions is completed, we can afford in the next financial year to assist other regions, more especially the Namakwa region, the SAfm region within the province, where there's a need, because we are a growing province, even though we are sitting on 1.2 million people, but the need is there for the education to be shaped up and to be properly managed within the Department of Education.
So, Harold, what are you expecting to hear in today's State of the Province address?
Well, Cathy, this will be the last State of the Province of the Premier, so we don't expect that much. We expect a lot of rhetoric, we expect a lot of same old stories and things that has been done and happened, but we want to see that the Premier actually tell us for the last 5 years that he says that he will look at the corruption cases within the Northern Cape, that he must also look into see that there is a proper functioning of the departments under his watch. We see a number of former MECs. They're all in the Premier's offices, and they are advisors to the Premier. But since the inception of 2019, a lot of promises was made. And I cannot see, because there's nothing really that he can tell us today what really changed. But we need to understand that when we go to the voting station on the 29th of May, a new government will come into power. Even though if the ANC retain their power, we need to understand also from him what is his projection to ensure that things happen and get done within the province.
We're in conversation with Harold McGlure, who is the leader of the DA in the Northern Cape Provincial Legislature. Today, of course, is the State of the Province address taking place in that particular province, and the province's Premier, Dr. Zamani Soul, will be tabling then that State of the Province address in a short while. So, Harold, when you look at the work that you as opposition parties are doing in the Northern Cape, do you believe that you've been efficient when it comes to matters of accountability? This is holding the Premier and his MECs, the rest of his cabinet, accountable where there have been failures. And I will point just again to the matric results of the Northern Cape, because there is a pattern there consistently. We have the Northern Cape doing, unfortunately, not well, almost sort of being at the bottom 2, if not bottom 3. This year, of course, we know that the province received the worst results in the country. So when you see that, it points to a lack of progress in addressing what are perhaps structural issues. But how are you as the opposition making sure that you hold them accountable?
Well, indeed, Cathy. I think we have, for the last 5 years and even before the sixth term, we have kept them accountable in terms of our oversight role and responsibility. And we have done so. And as an opposition, we also have a good story to tell. What we have done, we have met, as I earlier indicated, with the MEC of Education to address this backlog within our matric results. We have sat together and asked how best can we help, because within the spheres of government, in the legislature, it's not only about criticism or criticize the official the ruling party, sorry to say that, but we have done a number of things. And so also within different departments, we've ensured that they keep them accountable. One example that I can give you, we went to Renosterberg. We have engaged to the Water and Sanitation Department to assist there. 6 million rand was given to them. That is the role that we have played. Even in Hartswater, we went into the community to speak to them together with the MEC of Kokta and to ensure that there's water in the people's taps. We have even went to the health department. Our oversight role and responsibility as the opposition within the legislature. We went to different institutions of the government, and we went back to the MECs. There is an open door policies. We have engaged with them. Some stuff has changed. The medication, the shortage of the medication was actually sorted out after we have addressed this issue, as well as in the agricultural sector. And many of these things, we have kept them accountable for their actions, because that is our responsibility. Now, we have done a number of things, and a number of things has changed because we were in the forefront of our oversight role and responsibility. We came back to the MECs. We addressed these issues with them and asked them to fix it. The recent water crisis in Kimberley, we have met with the chairperson of the portfolio committee. I had a discussion with the MEC of Kokta. We sit around the table and say it is about time that we look in the interest of the community instead of focusing on our political agenda. And that meeting took place. And it's the roles of the municipality to change that. And yet nothing happens whilst they have received 500 million rand and then top up of 2.5 billion rand. But we then took it to the people and we addressed this matter, because you have processes within your legislature framework, the sector oversight model, to address these things. We were very potent on these matters to ensure that we keep them accountable.
All right, I've got a question that's come through here, and it's on the issue of budget spending, in particular on healthcare. Let me play this voice note.
Good morning, Cathy. Wow, just listening to you speaking to Harold from the DA and wondering what the state of the province address is going to include. But do you not think the comment that he made about 250 million rand hospital suddenly becoming 2.5 or 2 billion rand, that the public protector actually needs to look into that and see exactly where those cost overruns were, because that's 10 times the budget. Where did the money go to?
Harold, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, Cathy, I came into the legislature in 2012, and I made it my first priority to probe the matter of the mental hospital from 2.35 million to 2.1 billion. We have taken the matter up with the public protector, the SIU. That matter is still under investigation. There was a number of fraud and corruption activities within the mental hospital. People tend to have a number of contracts. It was cadre deployment, jobs for pals, those people that got that contract. There's one person that needs to appear before the SIU, but unfortunately he also passed away. There's so many corruption within the Northern Cape, and those money was lost because it was not properly used. Those people in those contracts, that there was a number of contractors there, and some of them even took the Department of Health to court. So there was a number of legal issues that happened there, and we are still on top of it. If we also look into the budget spendings of all departments, including the provincial legislature, where we have spent almost 400 million rand to renovate the legislature, those money was just lost. They even took the people up, the contractors. The job has been stopped, nothing, the legislature, there is some legal issues with the legislature as well. Now, these are the things that we have taken to the SIU and many others. We see that corruption is the order of the day in the Northern Cape. A CFO of Public Works was stopped at a roadblock and they caught him with 700,000 rand in his car. Now, this is the cadre deployment. This is the jobs for PEL. This is where people are having corrupt activities, and it is part and parcel of the state capture, that people that is in government that capture the state and are in corrupt activities.
All right, Harold McClure, we'll leave it there for this morning. He's the leader of the DA in the legislature, and those are just his reflections as a member of the opposition in the Northern Cape. And as you heard, he's been in that council since 2012. So he's had the opportunity of really, sitting through a number of these kind of addresses, and then raising the concerns that he has about the follow-through of the provincial government. So we're expecting then that State of the Province address to officially kick off at around 11 o'clock. Unfortunately, we won't bring it live, but hopefully that gives you a sense of what some of the issues of concern in the Northern Cape are, but also what some of the issues that the cabinet of the Northern Cape would highlight as their successes over the last term of office. All right, I'm going to take some of the WhatsApp voice notes you've been sending through to the show. On the other side of the 11 o'clock news, we're going to focus on the campaign by the Free Market Foundation. This is to try and center crime in the conversation around elections. They want people, you and I, to really try and hold political parties accountable when it comes to some of the suggestions and the solutions they have to the issue of crime in the country. So we'll find out more about that campaign in a moment.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 104.6 FM in Kimberley.
Morning. Do you hear that? That's a sign of no water. Just hear that tap. Only air is coming out. This is Zex from Durban. This is what we have to get up to every day. Now, with this guy, he's saying EFF and opposition parties have no job. They haven't done anything in the parliament. But who was the guy who said Jacob Zuma must pay back the 250 million from Kandla? It was the EFF. Who was the one who was pushing for free education and the fees must fall? The EFF. So many things they said they must be get done, and they were done. Opposition parties are there for other parties to account. I don't know what he's talking about. Even the Palapala issue, they're still pressing it, and they're going to press it until it's resolved. I'm not an EFF member, but I can see what they're doing, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Morning, host Cathy. Look, I'm listening to a whole lot of people commenting about SAPS not being able to, that they were never going to arrest AKAs, killers, if it wasn't of Swaziland. But the reality of the matter is that Swaziland only knew that these guys are wanted in South Africa for the matter of AKA because of South African police services. Now, there's a difference between building a stronger case and actually prematurely arresting people, right? Because Swaziland was never going to arrest those guys if they did not have tangible evidence that was coming from South Africa that these are suspects in that murder case. Because where else would they get that information that these guys are suspects in AKA's case, you know? So I think we need to applaud South African police services, KZN subs, that they've done a stellar job, you know, who broke the news first, but it should not matter. The issue should be who gave evidence that led to that arrest.
Hashtag SAFM Talking Point. Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
The top stories this hour: AKA murder suspects appear in court, and Sardinia Bay Veld fire rages on. A very good morning to you. 5 of the accused linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibs-Motswane have appeared in the Durban Magistrates Court. They face 10 counts, which include 2 charges of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and unlawful possession of firearms. The 5 are Lindokuhle Ndimande, Lindani Ndimande, Siyanda Edimieza, Mziwethemba Havikwabini, and Lindokuhle Ndimande. The state asked that the matter be postponed for further investigations and to allow them time to finalize the extradition processes of the 2 accused arrested in Eswatini. The defense has indicated that it will be making an application for bail. The matter has been postponed to the 6th of March. The city of Cape Town says it is assisting in the search for Jocelyn Smith from Saldanha Bay on the west coast, who went missing 10 days ago. It says it has an agreement with neighboring municipalities to assist in any emergency. Mayoral Committee Member for Safety and Security J.P. Smith says the mayor of Saldanha Bay contacted him yesterday and formally requested assistance with the search. He says multiple teams such as the man-tracking K9 dogs, fire and rescue, and the law enforcement marine unit have been sent to Saldanha Bay this morning. Former ANC Tshwane chairperson Kgosi Mayepa is taking legal action against the DA, demanding the party's cadre deployment records, the FedEx minutes from 30th of September 2016 till January this year. This after the opposition party was granted a court order to access the governing party's cadre deployment documents. Mayepa has given the DA until the 6th of March to respond.
I took it upon myself to, as a citizen of the Republic of South Africa, but also as a person who has interest on this such kind of matters, that I should request those documents from the DA to understand, for instance, how did they appoint various people. You would know historically that we had various kinds of people in Tshwane who were appointed without qualifications, and many other stories you would remember that in the past few years. So it was interesting for me to then get those documents and find out exactly how the DA went about to appoint those kind of people who are not fit and proper.
Ekurhuleni Mayor Sivuyile Ngodwana will today face a motion of no confidence. The motion, brought by Action SA, accuses the mayor for the city's deteriorating finances and poor service delivery. The motion comes amid a row over the Auditor General's report into the city's finances, with council members accusing the mayor and the MMC of Finance, Nkululeko Dunga, of hiding the report. Ekurhuleni Action SA's Siyanda Makubo.
We currently owe service providers in excess of about 2.1 billion rand. I mean, this range from Eskom to Rand Water to service providers such as waste and those responsible for maintaining the city's infrastructure. And remember, service delivery is the core mandate of a municipality. And once a municipality is unable to pay service providers and unable to deliver services, then you start asking questions whether it's worth having the current executive currently governing.
Firefighters in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro continue to battle a Veld fire in the Sardinia Bay area on the outskirts of Gqeberha. The fire has been raging for more than 2 days along the western coastal stretch of the city. Firefighters managed to avert a disaster. Metro spokesperson Mtubanzi Mniki says they are still struggling to bring the fire under control, which is now burning in thick vegetation behind Schoon Makerskop, heading towards Sardinia Bay. He says the city applauds the work of the officials who've been on the ground throughout the night, ensuring the safety of residents.
The Sardina Bay area, there are still strong winds there that are hampering our efforts. The teams are still trying so hard to control that area for now. The Sapazook is under control now. Most of it has been extinguished. The Skumaka Scope area still burning. The challenge is the densely vegetated areas there that are not easy to access, and the wind as well is not helping, but the teams are in full force working in that area.
And South Korea's government has threatened to take legal action against thousands of striking doctors and suspend their medical licenses if they do not return to work by the end of the day. Around 3/4 of the country's junior doctors have walked out of their jobs in the last week. The BBC's John Mackenzie.
With Korea's population ageing rapidly, the government wants to raise the number of people admitted to medical school each year from 3,000 to 5,000. But doctors argue this won't fix the shortages already being seen in rural areas and emergency care, because there are more fundamental flaws in the system. But their real anger stems from feeling overworked and underpaid, though they've not won the public over. Most people here want more doctors on hand, meaning there's little incentive for the government to back down.
The top story at 11, 5 of the accused linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibbs Motswane have appeared in the Durban Magistrates Court. For SAFM News, Gemudupi Makhalemed.
Pyramids FC trust their secret plan will trouble their Mauritanian visitors. But FC Nwadibu say they have traveled with the correct tools to rearrange the pyramids. This is the CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on Africa's beautiful game. Pyramids FC versus FC Nwadibu on Saturday 2 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues, no more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point at 7 after 11 o'clock. Welcome to the final hour of the show. Let me welcome onto the show Zakhele Mthembu, who is a researcher at the Free Market Foundation. Zakhele, good morning.
Good morning to you, Cathy. Thank you for having me.
Of course, we've invited you onto the show to come and speak to us about the rule of law project that you've been running, and you basically are wanting crime to be at the center of the conversation. As we, of course, are election season, it's something that you think we as citizens need to be speaking more about. Tell me why.
Yes, Cathy. We at the Free Market Foundation have a project we are currently running called the Section 12 project. We believe that South Africa has been making headlines internationally for being one of the most violent crime-ridden countries, globally, and we think that there is no political party that currently has a drastic nor innovative solution to deal with this, violent crime. And as such, as the Free Market Foundation, we've decided to contribute our voices and launch the Section 12 project. And pretty much the Section 12 project is premised on Section 12 of the South African Constitution, which states that no South African citizen is to be subject to public or private violence. It is the basis of our criminal justice system, if one were to say. So we have this project called the Section 12, and it stands on 4 pillars. And, if you give me the time, I can expand on what those 4 pillars are.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, no problem. The first pillar then of the project would be, firstly, we want the South African government and the South African, state to have a single criminal code. Currently, we have a bunch of legislation whereby there are offences and crimes whereby South Africans could be charged and prosecuted, but they are located in different legislation. This makes it extremely difficult for the ordinary person to know which crimes they can be prosecuted for. And as part of one of an easy solution is to just have a single statute that has all the crimes that a person in South Africa can be prosecuted for. We believe this will be easier to help people in the access of justice to know when there'll be file of the law, and of course, which is an important aspect of the rule of law. And it will also help in just the general administration of justice in and of itself, because prosecutors won't have to spend an inordinate amount of time looking through different legislative provisions. The second pillar is to have decentralization is, I'm sorry, let me look through my notes. The second pillar is to have decentralization to the provinces, to decentralize crime pretty much to provinces, and try to decentralize security forces and the dealing of crime to as provinces as much as we can, because we believe that the amount of taxes that South Africans pay towards the dealing with crime those who spend those taxes should be held accountable as close as possible to individual communities. And as such, we believe that this is an important aspect of dealing with crime, in having provinces, for instance, and provinces can then devolve to municipalities and as close as possible to the individual man on the street, so that they are able to hold accountable those who spend their tax dollars on crime, or on supposedly dealing with crime, right? And then the third pillar is expanding the capacity of the police. We want to expand the capacity of the police in the sense that we want the police to, firstly, we need more courts, we need more prosecutors. We generally don't necessarily need more police, but we need better policing capacity. So we believe in the expansion of police capacity. And the fourth pillar, which is tied to the third pillar, is to pretty much decriminalize a large section of South African offences. Currently, there are a lot of offences that do not harm any other individual, but they are still categorized as offences, particularly in the commercial sector. So you have offences, for instance, in the banking sector or in normal ordinary business, whereby police will be expending resources on trying to prosecute. Police and the general criminal justice system will be expending resources trying to prosecute an individual businessman who did not submit a form or does not have a proper license, whilst there's a murderer, a rapist, a thief that is going scot-free or not being prosecuted. Therefore, we believe that by decriminalizing a lot of these offenses that do not harm any individual rights to particular persons, we will then free up resources, which will help in the further capacitating, because the more resources are not spent on prosecuting people who are not harming anyone, the more resources can be redirected towards prosecuting and policing people who are actually harming other individuals. And to this extent, as part of the Section 12 project, we are planning on creating a criminal database that will catalog all criminal offences in South Africa to show the extent of criminalization.
All right, let's just begin with this idea of decentralizing the police, which is your second pillar. What do you mean by decentralizing police? Is this about provinces effectively being given the powers to manage their own policing?
Yes. We currently, ideally, as the Free Market Foundation, we believe that individual communities, firstly, the individual is responsible for their safety, and then this devolves to their family, their community, their city, their province. But currently, we have the mechanism in the Constitution that allows provinces to exercise some element of power in determining certain aspects of their policy. And we believe that this will help, as I said, in bringing accountability closer to the people whom it actually whom the services are supposed to be rendered to, right? Instead of having a national police commissioner who is quite detached from the problems of the individual communities, from the problems that individual communities face in their provinces. By bringing the accountability closer, at the very least to the provincial level, then it makes the accountability much more easier, and it makes it much more effective to tailor specific solutions for crime in certain provinces. For instance, in the Western Cape, right, we have a political party that is not the nationally governing party, and I'm sure they have their own ideas on how they can improve policing. And by devolving these powers, which the Constitution allows for them to be devolved, we can then allow the people of the Western Cape to pretty much dictate how they want to police their communities, or the people of Gauteng, or the people of KZN.
Yeah, when you talk about the fact that what we see are leaders that are effectively out of touch with the needs of the communities as it relates to crime. But every province has a provincial commissioner of the police. And so how different would the role that whoever a province appoints, how different would it be to what is in place currently, where you do have a provincial commissioner that is in charge of an office that does deploy individuals, and of course one would expect that they do that in line with the specific needs of the area they serve?
That is a great question, by the way. This touches on my example of the Western Cape. Currently, every time the Western Cape mentions the prospect of having a security policy that may even differ from what the national government proposes, they are always met with contestation. So we do agree that these powers exist. We want them to be exercised more. We just want them to be strengthened, pretty much. But currently, yes, there are provincial commissioners, but the ability of those provincial commissioners to pretty much chart the destiny of their individual provinces is really limited in substance, because as we all know, the Western Cape is looked at as wanting to pretty much do its own thing, which it is allowed to do, because the people there are also, people who enjoy their own rights and are allowed to govern themselves. But that is chastised in, media reporting and by commentators, and even by national police commissioners who want to call the province into order. So even though we have the constitutional capacity and in actual form the individual police commissioners, they pretty much follow the tune of the national commissioner. So what we want is for these powers that exist to be strengthened, to be exercised much more comprehensively, and possibly devolved to municipalities, right? We don't want to stop at the provincial levels. We want municipalities to also exercise some level of control.
The idea, Zakele, is that if one believes that there is a province that will perhaps bring about better results than what we're seeing right now, then of course the idea can work. But what happens in a worst case scenario where you have provinces that aren't actually doing well, that deliver even below what the national department's expectations are? What happens in that scenario? Because again, the provision of the services by the police is regulated by the Constitution, and it is considered to be a national competency.
That is true. You see, in the case of provinces that may not be performing well, this is the nature of shared competencies, by the way, whereby they are shared by both national and provincial bodies. Is that for provinces that are struggling, that is where the national body can step in, right, and assist those provinces. That is why our constitution is built in such an ingenious way. But the point is, we want the ability for those provinces, when they have dealt with their inability to provide those services, and should they want to dictate their own security policy, to do so, right? We think that this is a commonsensical belief, to have people in their communities dictate how the police should police them. and how those resources that are spent on security should be spent, right? Since they inherently come from the taxpayers in those individual communities. We think that it is a commonsensical belief. And for those provinces that may struggle to provide those services, right, that is where the national government can step in and assist without eliminating the abilities of those provinces to still dictate their security policy should they wish to.
We're in conversation with Zakhele Mthembu. He's a researcher at the Free Market Foundation. We'll continue that conversation in a moment.
ES Tunis is adamant a win is non-negotiable in front of their home fans against the Sudanese Giants. Meanwhile, Al Hilal is inspired that the best conclusion of the group stage is to triumph on foreign ground. This is the CAF Champions League. Witness Africa's beautiful game. ES Tunis clashes with Al Hilal on Saturday 2 March at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. It's 20 past 11, and of course we're focusing on what is the campaign, at least a campaign that the Free Market Foundation is currently holding. They effectively want us as citizens to center crime when it comes to the conversations leading up to elections. I'd love to hear from you on this issue, because crime is something that affects all of us so deeply, and it robs so much from our lives, from our freedom of movement. We're just inconvenienced in so many different ways and are unable to carry out our lives as we should. So I'll take your calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. So how do you think we can be putting the conversation around crime on the agenda? What is it that we can be making demands of when it comes to political parties in terms of the solutions that they're putting on the table? So, Zakhele, one of the other things, of course, that you are talking about in this project is that you want to see the decriminalization of some offences. Which are these offences that you regard as offences that are not harmful to other people and therefore should not actually be regarded as criminal offences?
We use a pretty simple standard, right? As you said, as you just described it right now. These are actions that do not harm any individual person, but they are considered an offense because of a statute that deems them as such. So, for instance, this is seen mostly in the commercial sector, in the business sector, whereby in the banking sector, as I was dealing with cataloging offenses of the Banks Act, right? There's an offense for not submitting a form to the Prudential Authority on time, and that offense is punishable by 5 years or a fine in prison, right? Not submitting a form inherently causes no harm to anyone outside of the Prudential Authority not having the information due to the necessity of having that information being created by a legislation that requires that, right?
Yes, but it's about accounting.
That's true. It may be about accounting. The thing is, though, a business is accountable to its consumers. The market, the reason that commerce exists is because you as a business, you own that property and are allowed to run it as you deem fit, as long as you aren't violating anyone's rights. Now, you see, if the business had defrauded someone, and that is a crime, we have no problem with that, because that is causing harm to another individual human being. So not submitting a form does not cause harm. For instance, in the new tobacco bill, smoking in your own house, right? That may be a possible offense. We do not believe that things like that should be offenses because they do not harm anyone. You should be allowed to do whatever you deem fit as long as it is not harming anyone's rights, which it is not when you are in your home and you decide to smoke, or in your apartment and you decide to smoke. But generally, you see this in the commercial sector. And as you said, the issue of accountability, we are not opposed to it. We just want the offenses that are categorized as offenses should be offenses that harm other people. Murder is pretty clear. Murder harms another human being by you killing them illegally. Theft, rape, and a whole bevy of other, violent or non-violent offenses which harm personal property. And we believe those should be the main focus of the police instead of activities that do not cause or violate anyone's rights.
So, if I understand you correctly, then much of the focus of the campaign, and in particular where you are putting the emphasis on as the Free Market Foundation, is in line, of course, with what you do, which is mostly really dealing with matters that have commercial interests.
What is in line is mostly dealing with Section 12 of the Constitution, which gives South African citizens the right not to be subject to public or private violence.
So, Zakhele, I'm listening to the examples that you're giving, and you are the one that said that when it comes to the idea that you've put on the table around decriminalizing offenses which don't harm people, many of these center on the commercial aspect of our lives and of society. That's where true. You believe they need, and so that's why I'm making the statement I am.
Okay. Oh, no problem. Of course, that is unavoidable. A lot of these offenses are in the commercial sphere. I did make an example about the tobacco bill, though, which has nothing to do with commerce, but with people enjoying their right to private property, privacy, and individual bodily autonomy.
All right, let me go to Akolile. You're out in the Eastern Cape. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy.
Yes.
In the Western Cape.
Oh, you're in the Western Cape. All right,
apologies.
Oh, no problem. Apologies for that. Yes, Akolile.
Yes, I think the point that I wanted to make is in relation to this idea of giving certain provinces policing powers. I think, as you've said in the show, that there are provincial commissioners in all the provinces. The problem that we have, the challenge that we have in relation to the South African Police Service is when it comes to the distribution of police resources, which is what I believe needs to change, because that is a function that is controlled at the national level in relation to reported crime. And this is why you would see in certain police stations, if you look at the context of the Western Cape, police stations in the townships with some of the highest rates of violent crime and murder have far fewer police resourcing than police stations in the context of Sea Point and the CBD. And that's because in the CBD, majority of the people report crimes because those are people that would have insurance and therefore they have to claim for insurance. In the context of the townships, people have lost faith already in the police, so they end up not reporting crimes. And what those reports tend to happen is that they stew the resources, because what the police at the national level do, they look at reported crime and therefore distribute police in that way. What does need to happen is that the provincial commissioners themselves need to then have the powers to distribute police, so that it's not, the function of distribution of police is not controlled at the national level, but it's controlled at the provincial level. The dangers of giving powers to provinces is what we're starting to see already in the province of the Western Cape and in the city of Cape Town, with the law enforcement unit that doesn't account to IPID and that acts sometimes above the law, whether it's victimizing homeless people or evicting people illegally. That's the danger that we see, because that law enforcement unit is not aligned with the South African Police Service. It's also not aligned with the Metro Police Service, which already exists at the municipal level.
And one of the challenges, Akolile, just in terms of the issue that you're raising around the policing, is that there is supposed to be a uniform approach when it comes to how to fight crime in the country, and that's a national approach. So when you devolve it to provinces, what guarantee do you have that even the basics of what needs to be done will in fact be done. Because I don't think that it's necessarily about devolving powers only to the Western Cape, but if you allow the Western Cape to do it, other provinces could well follow suit.
Yeah, and this is what I'm talking about in relation to the dangers, because we have a constitutional arrangement, we have the acts that or the legislation that is supposed to give effect to some of those constitutional arrangements, and those work at a national level, and we do have to have that because our legislature, our parliament, you have MPs having to discuss around those things. Once you devolve that without changing the constitutional arrangement, it means that there is a likelihood that the different provinces might act outside of what is there in the Constitution, because now you're giving certain powers that are not necessarily aligned with the Constitution. And hence I'm saying there already is an arrangement with the National Commissioner that has provincial commissioners. What needs to happen is that those provincial commissioners needs to be given just the power so that they understand the needs in the province. They are able to take resources from an area that doesn't need those resources and give them to another area.
All right. Axolile in the Western Cape, thank you for calling in and sharing those views. It's 11:30. Let's take you to the latest news headlines. Of course, I'll still take more of your calls and contributions. Crime at the center of the conversation in the run-up to the elections. What do you want to see or hear political parties say on this issue?
A very good morning with the news headlines. Eke Mudupi Makhalemele. The case of the 5 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tebello Tibbs Mutwani has been postponed to the 6th of March in the Durban Magistrates Court. The city of Cape Town says it is assisting in the search for Jocelyn Smith from Saldanha Bay on the west coast, who went missing 10 days ago. And about 1.9 billion rand will be invested on roads as part of the Township Revitalization Program in the Free State. Details coming up at midday.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
Hey, Cathy, it's good to hear what Zakele is saying, but one cannot help but notice that the Free Market Foundation is got a very tight link to the Democrats. So whatever they say, I take it with a pinch of salt, because some of the points are valid, but there are points where I just think that one day we're going to be required to produce a passport when we enter the Western Cape. So I don't support this decentralization of police. I think it's just going to lead to a can of worms. Already, many of us can't afford property in the Western Cape. Imagine if they got their own police, they'll be evicting us. Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Yeah, thanks, Bongi, for those reflections. And it's really the part of the concern, right? Once you open that door, it doesn't become a bit of a Pandora's box. Zakele, you, of course, are a researcher with the Free State Market Foundation. Do you want to contribute anything before I continue taking some of our callers' contributions?
Yes. Firstly, I think Atolila's call was pretty much summed up the necessity of the project, right? Even though he mentioned the drawbacks of devolving provincial powers, because I believe what he mentioned is that provincial commissioners should be given the powers to deploy resources, and that is part of what we are talking about in the devolving of these policing powers. In that the provincial commissioner will be in a better position to understand where resources should be deployed in his province than a national commissioner would, and the fact that is not currently an ability that they can exercise is concerning. And for all the reasons that he mentioned, right, being closer to where the instances of the violence is occurring, and being able to take decisions that can impact, where the deployment of resources go and how those deployment of resources look like, to me seems like a great thing overall. And as for the drawbacks, right, every one is subject to the constitution in South Africa. So if there is a body that is acting contrary to the constitution, then that body should be taken to court, right? If that body is the security force of the Western Cape, then they should be taken to court. And I'm sure the courts will rule if there was an injustice that occurred in favor of justice, right? This is like the devolution of powers, and provinces being able to dictate their own security policy does not necessarily mean that they have free reign to violate rights. The rights will still be enjoyed. It's just that resources and accountability would be much more closer to the people on the ground. And as for the voice notes, I find it to be quite interesting because when we think of devolution, it's just that we use the example of the Western Cape, which is unfortunate because we have 8 other provinces around the Western Cape. Maybe it's because the Western Cape is the best run. So I guess in that case, they would make the best case scenario of how this would work in a well-run province. But why don't you think that the people of Limpopo, the people of KZN, Eastern Cape, want to determine how their communities are policed? Why are we always thinking of in the instance of being deprived of another community when there are other communities where we live? I live in Gauteng, in Johannesburg. I also want to have a say, a much more stronger one now, in how my security policy is determined, right? So we tend to think in a very, I would like to term it in a very fearful manner, but it is understandable given the history of the country. But my point about the constitution still applying, unless the constitution is annulled and the state of South Africa in and of itself stops existing, irrespective of whatever policy is applied, it will still have to be subject to the constitution. The rights that are in Chapter 2 will still be enjoyed, irrespective of where you are. So I think it is fear-mongering. Right? Wanting to govern yourself is not a bad thing. I believe everyone should want to govern themselves, especially given the history that we have in South Africa. So I think that every time we fear-monger around the prospect of people governing themselves, we always think of what we would be deprived of. We don't think of what we would be able to do should we be able to govern ourselves.
All right. Let me go to Cape Town. Bonginkosi, you want to contribute to this conversation? Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Cathy.
Yes.
I think we must dispel some myths here about the intention from the Western Cape government to get powers of the police and many other things.
Wait, is this, just hang on for me, is this Bonginkosi Madikizela?
Yes.
Okay, all right, okay.
People make this excuse that it's unconstitutional, as if constitution is this cast in stone document. Yet, the constitution has been amended 17 times. And that is why the process that the Western Cape started is to start, with the bill, obviously, so that we can make it constitutional. But the key question here that we need to answer, is policing effective in the manner in which it's done currently, where it's the national minister and the national commissioner that control the police, even the deployment of the police? Is it effective? And that's a question we need to answer. And the answer is a big no. It's not. And, the last caller is spot on. There's absolutely nothing wrong with people wanting powers closer to the people so that they can be able to distribute the resources correctly. So that's the point here, is that we are looking at the current situation and we're saying, the crime is getting out of hand. And the current arrangement in terms of how the police are deployed is not working. And therefore, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the provincial government. And by the way, it's not going to benefit just the Western Cape, and people must understand that when we are calling for devolution of power to provinces or devolution of power to provinces, we mean all provinces, not just the Western Cape.
Yeah, look, Bonginkosi, I think that the point is pretty much in line with what the DA has been saying for a really, really long time. I guess the question is when we look at why the police are not as effective as we would want them to be as citizens, does the answer always lie in the issue of who gets to control what? Because there are other systemic challenges that that the police have to face, and whether it's controlled from national or province, as long as some of those issues are not resolved, then you still sit with the same kind of problem.
Well, I partly agree, Cathy, but that is why I'm saying that when you have clearly demonstrated, and again, I mean, don't take our word for it. I know that people like to become emotional when it comes to Western Cape and race issues, but the key issue here is about providing services. I mean, comparatively speaking, the Western Cape is doing much better than any other province, and it's not us saying that.
Based on what, Bonginkosi? Based on what?
Independent institutions, your AG will tell you that we spend the money better here in the Western Cape. And let me just make...
Yeah, look, you know, so Bonginkosi, from a local government perspective, the Western Cape is the province that has municipalities, the highest number of municipalities with the cleanest audits. But that's a local government. It tells us about the local government function. It doesn't tell us about the province.
Well, including the province, Kate, I think that's why again you're misleading the people, because not only the local government. No, but
has the Auditor General ever come out to say that the Western Cape is the best run province in the country?
Yes, in terms of the audit outcome, yes. Western Cape, Cathy, as the provincial government, has 12 departments and a number of entities. And if you compare the audit outcomes of the departments of the Western Cape with any other province, I mean, they're above any other province in terms of the audit outcome and the service delivery. And that's the point that we are making, that we are basing what we are saying on the evidence
Bonginkosi.
Yes.
So one of the things that the Auditor General has consistently said, especially when it comes to audit outcomes of the Western Cape, is that a clean audit does not necessarily mean that there is efficient service delivery. So having services that really speak to the broad needs of the community. And there must be that distinction and appreciation. So, and that's where I think you and I are disagreeing on this issue.
But we shouldn't, Cathy. I see that's another problem that I have with analyses and commentators. Look at the budget. I mean, if you look at the budget, where does the budget go in terms of how the provinces are spending their budget? Because that's a key issue here. And sometimes we mislead people by comparing Cape Town and Camps Bay. Government doesn't spend, taxpayers' money in Camps Bay. I mean, you only spend your money on what you are required to do in terms of roads.
Yes, but Bonginkosi, we're talking because you're the one that referenced the Auditor General, and yes. when I think back to what I recall of her having said of the audit outcomes in the previous financial year, yes. You're correct on the clean audit statements, but she did raise the issue of clean audits and the efficiency and delivery of services, especially to the broader constituency. That is in her report.
Well, I hear that. I mean, I don't disagree with that argument, but I'm saying if you want to really delve deeper and see whether the taxpayers' money is spent where it should be spent, that's what you need to do. And you will find that more than 70% of the budget of the Western Cape is spent on the poor areas. And that is contained in their report. Because that's the issue here. The question is, how much money is spent on the poor and how much money gets stolen, and which is the reason why you find that service delivery is not effective. And you will find that by and large, the money that is allocated to Western Cape, which is taxpayers' money, is spent mostly in poor areas.
All right.
And the reason, Kate, just last point, and the reason that sometimes you don't get to see really what we would like to see in terms of improvement is that the resources far outweigh. I mean, the challenges far outweigh the resources. You know, in many parts of our country.
And that's a reason that is given by all provinces, Bonginkosi. It's not unique to the Western Cape. That's what you will hear.
But you need to look at how the money is spent.
That's what you will hear representatives of all provincial governments say. All right, Zakhele, parting shot from you.
Yes. Thank you. I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for Bongosi for calling in. I think he provided, at the very least, much needed context. And I don't think he helped our case at the Free Market Foundation by calling it, because we are already associated with the Democrats, even though we want each and every, South African citizen to enjoy their constitutionally given rights of liberty and the right to property and protection. You mentioned something about other systemic issues. I think this is important for me, because I think we were bogged down by the decentralization pillar, which is only just one pillar. We do acknowledge that, the solution does not only lie in just giving, powers to provinces or municipalities or even, actual, communities themselves. But we have other pillars. We have the decriminalization. We have the capacitation of the entire criminal justice system, right? Which is more prosecutors, more courts, more prisons, and generally more and better policing. So there are other factors outside of the devolution. So we want every factor or every pillar to be considered in unison, because it does not exist independently. And outside of that, I think it is a noble thing to want people to govern themselves. And instead of being fearful of what others may do, I think you should be hopeful of what you may do.
Zakhele, we'll have to leave it there for this morning. Zakhele Mthembu is a researcher at the Free Market Foundation. All right, that's where we'll leave it for the show on this Thursday. We're back with you again tomorrow morning. Up next is the book reading.
Keeping up with your TV license balance inquiries is now simpler than ever. No more waiting in queues. No more phone calls. Just SMS your ID or TV license account number to 44210 and secure your legal viewing fast and simple. Standard SMS rates will be charged. Terms and conditions apply. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference. Pyramids FC trust their secret plan will trouble their Mauritanian visitors. But FC Nwadibu say they have traveled with the correct tools to rearrange the pyramids. This is the CAF Champions League. Do not miss out on Africa's beautiful game. Pyramids FC versus FC Nwadibu on Saturday, 2 March at 3 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
The book reading. Please note the views expressed in this book are not that of the station. Listeners' discretion is advised. SAfm presents the first episode of Why Men Had Women and Other Reflections on Love, Violence and Masculinity. The reader is Samson Khumalo.
Why Men Had Women and Other Reflections on Love, Violence and Masculinity by Kopano Ratile. Forward by Raywin Carnell. Forward. This is a remarkable book, troubling, moving, and inspiring. It's a linked set of short narratives and essays across a surprising range of topics, from a kids' football game in the street, to rape myths, to the militarization of police services. All are connected to the three great themes of love, violence, and masculinity, and their paradoxical relationship. The book works at several levels. Kopano talks about the emotions and uncertainties of relationship with stories from his own life and work. He thinks aloud about the practicalities of feminist work, anti-racism, and men's engagement in ending men's violence. At the same time, he speaks of capitalism, corruption, and economic inequality, colonization and racism, and the patriarchal structures that oppress women and girls, but also damage the lives of men and boys. This is a South African book by an important South African public intellectual. Kopano grew up, as many others did, in an unforgiving environment. He speaks of what he knows the toxic racism of the apartheid regime, the massive economic inequalities that persist decades later, the terrifying levels of rape and murder that make South Africa one of the most dangerous countries for women and for men too. This gives urgency to his arguments. This is a discussion from which people everywhere can learn. For there is no place on earth that has yet achieved gender equality and social peace. Masculinities that are organized around power are found in every part of the world. Reading through Why Men Hate Women and other reflections on love, violence, and masculinity, I kept finding moments of insight that would deserve a whole book each. There are too many to list. But the reader might look out for these: boys and men's need for care and difficulty in giving it, the need for education of the emotions, the paradox of finding violence and love